Today we're talking about the Nintendo Wii. The Nintendo Wii, you know it, we all love it, or hate it depending on your feelings about motion controls. Nintendo Wii was a console released by Nintendo right back in the mid-2000s. This thing was amazing, and it completely won its console generation, by the way. A lot of people thought that the Xbox 360 or the PS3 won, and between those two, the PS3 actually won, but out of all three major companies, Nintendo was the one to pull out on top. That's a little fact that people often forget, to be honest, and it's weird considering how popular the Wii was. While your household might have had an Xbox 360 or it might have had a PS3, it 100% had a Wii at this point in time. Everyone had one of these things. Everyone wanted one of these things. These things went out of stock completely the second they got released. And I mean, it's no wonder. When you looked at the ads and stuff for these things, I mean, ooh, can you be surprised they sold out immediately? Oh my god! I can play baseball! But like, it's like I'm actually there! The Nintendo Wii had this whole gimmick about motion controls with this funky new controller set with the Wii Remote and the nunchuck. Motion controls had to some extent existed before the Wii, with things like the Game Boy Advance, specifically this Yoshi game, having a cartridge which, well, it had a nice little gyro sensor in it. You use that and it would allow you to turn around in the game by moving your console in real life. Oh my god! When I move the console, the game moves! I'm so autistic. However, when motion controls came to the Wii, they were fully fleshed out. Motion controls, instead of just being a cartridge that you stuck into your GBA as a one-off little gimmick, instead this time were fully built into the Wii Remote and nunchuck, with almost all games using it. This made motion controls a far more integrated feature into the Wii. In fact, it was one of its core features. That was one of the reasons you'd buy a Wii. You didn't buy a Wii because, oh look, the new Mario Kart looked so good. You bought a Wii because you could play bowling on it. Wii Sports! This is a copy of a game that kind of came with every single Wii console. There's never truly been a game quite like this, where almost every single person who owned a Wii has a universal experience of playing this one game. This specific game was owned by almost everyone who owned a Wii, mainly because it was bundled in with all the Wiis. Wii Sports was the game that was advertised by Nintendo all the time. It's the one they wanted to push the most, because it was the one that was really going after those motion control features they were talking about. The ability to use a Wii Remote and nunchuck in order to be able to do boxing, or to do golf, or bowling, and you had to physically do the action of throwing a ball or hitting a racket or something. It was completely revolutionary at the time. No one else had done this or thought of this before. Wii Sports, I mean, is popular amongst all age groups as well. Anyone from kids to adults could really understand this thing. I mean, it didn't really matter what age you were, it was pretty simple to understand the basic action of swinging a golf club or something, so anyone could enjoy playing Wii Sports. That's why Nintendo Wii and Wii Sports were actually really popular in nursing homes. Everyone in there, even if they were really old, could understand the basic actions of throwing a bowling ball, and it was something that everyone knew how to do and they enjoyed it. Although Wii Sports wasn't the only game the Wii had. No, the Wii had a plethora of really amazing titles on it. For example, Mario Galaxy. This is the game I talked about last week, and well, I still think it's really good. I said last week in my review on it that the game itself is amazing, its music is amazing, it had so many new features and everything. One thing I didn't cover in that video, however, was how the motion controls played into it, and that's because the motion controls don't have a lot of impact on it. The Wii motion controls in Mario Galaxy were really just shaking the Wii Remote, which would allow Mario to do a spin attack, and that's pretty much it. However, you could also use the Wii sensor bar. This was something that every single Nintendo Wii had to come with in order to use it. The Wii sensor bar was incredibly simple. It was literally just a, well, bar that outputs IR light, as to which the Wii Remote would be able to pick up, as it had a sensor to pick up IR light on it. This would then transmit a signal to the Wii console itself, and it would tell you where your Wii Remote was in relation to the screen, which was actually a nice feature. This is something that hadn't really been done before in anything other than TV, so having this in a console was pretty revolutionary. Fun fact as well, because it could put out IR light, you could actually light 2 candles and it would work with your Wii Remote as well. Anyways, sensor bar would allow you to point your Wii Remote at different things. In games like Mario Galaxy, this would be used for the task of collecting star bits. buttons. However, in other games, this was used for menu navigation. The IR sensor, while useful, wasn't a mind-blowing feature. It was a nice quality of life thing for the Wii, but it wasn't like the end-all be-all for the console. This was mainly used to navigate menus and the Wii system home menu as well. Though if anyone actually had a Wii, you'd remember that, well, using this thing would be a real pain in the ass sometimes. Come on. Center. Center. Why won't it center? The Wii Remote sensor was really shaky at times. This is something that anyone who's actually used a Wii will know. It was often annoying to use it around menus, so well, sometimes it could be useful, other times it's just better to use something like the D-pad. There's also games like Mario Kart Wii. Mario Kart Wii was the Mario Kart for the Nintendo Wii, as you can probably guess by the name. By this point, every single Nintendo console to exist had some form of Mario Kart, apart from the Game Boy Color. These Mario Karts had been pretty much the same all throughout in terms of their general gameplay, and Mario Kart Wii was no different from that, with one key feature. Mario Kart Wii would take advantage of the Wii's motion controls by allowing you to slide the Wii Remote into a grip shaped like a steering wheel. The fuck? Now, keep in mind you could steer the cart normally with a Wii Remote, but I guess they just didn't expect people to be smart enough to understand that. How on earth am I supposed to use this? Makes no sense! I get it now! This allows you to control your cart directly using the motion controls, using the Wii Remote to either steer to the left or to the right, depending on where you want it to go. This is amazing at the time, because this is the first time this was ever done. Instead of having to use an actual physical driving wheel like you would have to do with other racing games, for this you just had to use your normal remote and then just slot it into this piece of plastic and, well, it's like you're really driving. Wow. Just like back on the open road. Man, almost makes me wish I didn't get my license revoked for vehicular manslaughter. Virtual Console! Virtual Console was a feature that was on the Wii. It was introduced in this generation with the Wii and the DS. Virtual Console allowed you to use your Wii as any Nintendo console that existed prior. Virtual Console would allow you to download games from the SNES all the way up to the N64, and you could play them right there on your Wii. All your Nintendo games on one system by going to the Wii Shop channel and buying them with Wii points. This was the first Nintendo console to do something like this, with the Wii Shop channel being able to do actual digital downloads onto the console. The Wii Remote being shaped like an NES controller, however, is because it could basically be used as one. Yeah, I'd say these are pretty much the same. This will allow you to simply turn your Wii Remote around and just use it for NES games. The Wii Remote worked perfectly as an NES controller. It had your D-pad, your two buttons, and your start and select in the middle, so you could use it for any single NES game. It would feel actually decently good for them. The only problem with this, however, is that for something like SNES games or N64 games, this just wasn't enough buttons. So if you want to play SNES games on your Wii, you have to use something a little bit different. Man, my Nintendo Wii can play SNES games, but this Wii Remote just isn't good enough. There's not enough buttons on here for me to press. I need a different remote. Something that just is more. Something that's like a controller for the Wii that's more classic. Holy shit, it's a demon. The Wii Classic controller is essentially just an SNES controller with some analog sticks and extra triggers. This thing, from its name alone, you can already guess what it was supposed to be used for. This was made for Virtual Console. Not actually just SNES, but with the analog sticks, also for N64 games as well, and Mario Kart Wii for some reason, because you could use this on it. This controller, though, is basically just an SNES controller when you look at it from face value. You've got your D-pad, your 4 buttons, your start and select right there. It's pretty much an SNES controller that you can buy for your Wii. Yeah, these are also pretty much just the same. However, there was another controller type you could plug into your Nintendo Wii. That being, of course, the GameCube controller. Man, I got my GameCube back in 2001 and that was really cool, but now I can't use this GameCube controller in the new Nintendo Wii. Wait, I can? God is real! The GameCube controller could actually be used on the Nintendo Wii. The GameCube controller was able to be used on the Nintendo Wii because the Nintendo Wii was backwards compatible with the GameCube. Now, later models of the Wii would remove this backwards compatibility. However, with the original Wii model, you could simply open up these flaps on the top and you'd have your GameCube ports right there ready to go. You'd have all your 4 controller ports and your 2 ports for your memory cards as well, and you just put a GameCube disc into the normal Wii disc slot, and boom, you can now play GameCube games on your Nintendo Wii. This is something that is amazing at the time. Nintendo really hadn't done backwards compatibility like this. They'd done backwards compatibility really with their handhelds, and that was about it. But with an actual console, oh, this was really cool. All your GameCube games you bought back in the early 2000s could now be played in the late 2000s on your Wii, and well, if you sold your GameCube, it didn't matter because you can just use your Wii for all the games. When I was young, didn't actually have one of these Wiis. I had the Wii Family Edition, which was an edition released later on that pretty much removed this entire feature. However, I do now currently have one of these Wiis that have GameCube ports, and I can tell you, it's really useful. If I ever want to play GameCube games, sometimes I'll use a GameCube, but most of the time I'll just use the Wii. It's more convenient for me. Putting a disc into the same console I want to play Mario Kart Wii on and be able to play Double Dash on it as well is just a lot more useful than having to switch between the Wii and the GameCube. This is just a good feature to have overall. It's why most consoles nowadays have backwards compatibility with their previous generations as well. You can still sell games from those previous generations without having to support those consoles specifically. The GameCube controller being able to be used on the Wii, however, was also just a really good feature in general. It can be used on games like Mario Kart Wii, and well, that's pretty much it in terms of where it's really used on the Wii in terms of Wii games. However, you can also just use it for your normal GameCube games and for your Virtual Console games as well. The GameCube controller in general is just a really good controller, so being able to use it on the Wii was just a godsend at the time. There's also controllers like the Wii Nunchuck. The Wii Nunchuck overall was just a really good controller. It was very simple, but you just plugged it into the bottom of your Wii remote and you could go ahead and use it. The analog stick was able to be used to be able to control any analog games. Games like Mario Galaxy and a lot of virtual titles for the N64 used this, and had 2 triggers on the back to make it just like any other normal controller, just missing an analog stick. A lot of people complain about the Wii Remote and Nunchuck, but honestly, I think they're a decent controller. Compared to something like the N64 controller, as to which it's basically identical to it in terms of the amount of buttons on it, I think it just works better because of the placement. And keep in mind, the Wii Remote and Nunchuck 100% inspired the current Nintendo Switch and eventual Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Cons, with the fact that you can just hold them like 15 miles apart from each other. Wow! Finally, a controller for me! Now, motion controls on the Nintendo Wii weren't always a good thing, as anyone who's actually interested in the Zelda franchise, they'll be able to tell you that. Skyward Sword, that was a game on the Nintendo Wii in the Zelda franchise that didn't really use motion controls exactly the best. Come on! Come on! Why won't it hit this goddamn thing? Ah! These motion controls would allow you to be able to use your sword as Link while actually physically holding your Wii remote. However, this also wasn't really that good of a thing. The feature really just didn't work very well. The motion controls were finicky. Half your time, your sword wouldn't go where you're wanting it to go, and honestly, you'd rather just use a normal controller to play the game. And this is really the legacy that the Wii's motion controls often get left in the dirt by. It's the fact that they were really finicky a lot of the times. But keep in mind, a lot of times the Wii motion controls did work well. And when they were used well, they were used really pretty well. Something like the Wii Remote was always used generally to its fullest capabilities, for the better or for the worst, but a lot of times the motion controls would in general enhance the gameplay experience. A game like Wii Sports Resort just does feel better with the motion controls. And eventually Nintendo for the Wii would release the Wii Remote Plus, where you'd be able to use your motion controls in a slightly better way. Your Wii Remote would come with a gyro sensor inside of it, which would allow it to have more capabilities and more precise movements. And for older Wii Remotes, a gyro add-on was added you could plug into the bottom of the Wii Remote and use for something like Wii Sports Resort. So you can still use your older Wii Remotes with the updated features, you just had to get an extra accessory for it. But as a console, and for its legacy, Nintendo Wii, I would say, was honestly probably one of Nintendo's best consoles. Out of all Nintendo consoles, this one really appealed to the casual players. The fact that you could do physical actions to do actions within the game just made so much sense to everyone that, well, anyone could get into it, as I'd already said. The Wii was honestly just a really good console at the time, and it was a really unique idea for a console. No one had done something like this before, and Nintendo were pioneers at the time. Eventually, this would lead to Nintendo's downfall, attempting to piggyback off the success of the Wii with the Wii U, and they would fail completely with that. But at the same time, don't let that detract from the Wii's experience. The Wii itself was a good console. It had some real good games on it. Mario Galaxy, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, where that series peaked, Animal Crossing, and Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games was actually a decent game on the Wii. So, despite the fact that a lot of people hate on the motion controls, realistically, were they that bad? Depended on the game. Some games, really, you hated these things, and you were completely right to do so. And in other games, they say they actually enhanced the experience. It was very game dependent. But in general, I'd say the Wii, out of all Nintendo consoles, is probably the one that's left most of an impact on society. Everyone remembers this thing, from its menu music to its goofy Miis, which they introduced here, with games like Wii Sports, which would use them completely. All the Wii titles use just Miis, which you make in the Mii Maker channel. You got classic games like Mario Kart Wii with its giant character roster and a large variety of tracks at the time. The Wii overall is just a really good console with a lot of good memories associated with it, and honestly, it's probably the console I look back on the most fondly. So, final verdict on the Wii? Lisa 64.